Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome back to the channel, where if you've been following along, about once a month, we've been diving into the Kate Bush discography. Of course, we kicked off the series with Hounds of Love, as part of the Art Pop April series I did, where I listened to nothing but art pop albums throughout the month of April. And then that video was so well received, and I had so many Kate Bush fans come in and tell me that they loved my reaction, that as a thank you, I thought I would keep the good times going with her discography, and I wanted to check out more of her work anyway. So we went back to the Kickin' Side, and we have been working our way through her discography once a month. Now, of course, today we're going to be checking out her last album, at least her last album that she has since released back in 2011, and that, of course, is 50 Words for Snow. Now, before we go any further, before we really dive into the video and the album, there's something else I wanted to address real quick, and it's going to be a bit more of a somber note, unfortunately. However, if you've been following the series, if you've been following my channel, then I would very much appreciate if anybody could help out or is willing to help out, checking out the description down below. I put a link for my sister-in-law GoFundMe, because she has been unfortunately diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer back in August of this year. Nobody, of course, is obligated to donate, but if you do choose to do so, I'll have you know that the money will be going towards covering any sort of medical expenses, parking fees, really just anything to help out both my brother and my sister-in-law in this time, because again, this is, unfortunately a very struggling time for everyone, just, anyone in today's society, and unfortunately for her, going through stage 3 breast cancer, it seems to be even more troubling time. So again, if you have some spare money and you would like to, send a donation her way, please, it would be very much appreciated. Description down below for the GoFundMe. And again, thank you if you choose to donate. And thank you even if you choose not to donate, because again, any sort of eyes on the GoFundMe, if you share it, please, anything will do, is what I'm trying to say. It'd be very much appreciated. But back to the topic at hand here. Let's continue. 50 Words for Snow is the album we are covering, the last Kate Bush album in the discography. Very much excited to check it out, because looking here and in leading up to this album, I already checked out some of the tracks, details, and I saw that many of these tracks are quite lengthy. In fact, the shortest track is 6 minutes and 48 seconds, just short of 7 minutes. And I am a huge sucker for a nice lengthy track, and Kate Bush is one of the best artists I've heard in quite a while, so this will be the makings of an interesting album at the very least. On top of that, I've heard this is a much more softer release from her, a much more somber release, and again, I've loved when she's gone the more subtle, more soft route in her previous work. I'm very much excited to hear what she has to do today on this album. Also seems quite fitting, because right now we have a good foot of snow or so outside. So let's get 50 Words for Snow on the road. Kicking it off, we've got Snowflake.
I was born in a cloud.
Right off the bat, showcasing her soft vocals and her piano work, which I've always admired. Very pained, kind of yearning vocal.
Keep falling, I'll find you. We're over a forest.
Is that her singing? Sounds a little different.
There's millions of souls around. Keep falling.
Oh, it seemed Birdie McIntosh, so it wasn't even, my bad, it wasn't even Kate there singing. I thought it was, but given the fact that they're both singing so hushed here, you can understand my confusion. That being said, we've got ourselves a duet, it would seem. I like the percussion on this one too. It's very like muffled and thick and kind of drowned out. Super airy atmosphere.
I can see horses wading through snowdrifts.
Oh. That kind of like distant drum rattle there too.
My fabulous dancing.
Love how like such a stripped back focus on this track. We're already 4 minutes in or so, roughly. It's a very gradual build we've got. This piano kind of repeating its main motif. I like that soaring string we had briefly. Bertie McIntosh, I'm so stupid. I knew Bertie was Kate's son, but I didn't realize that Macintosh was the name he had. His vocals are so different than what I would expect. I feel like when we heard him on Ariel, he sounded very different there. Didn't sound quite as hushed. But again, Kate Bush's son taking the reins here. Not sure his age. He sounds quite young. I will say, maybe a hot take. Personally, I don't find Bertie vocally to be, as spectacular as Kate or even a lot of the collabs that she's had in the past. But I do think it's quite sweet to see him featured so heavily in her discography at this point. And this one, a nice duet with his own mom. I think it's quite sweet.
I can hear people.
The world is so loud. Keep falling. I'll find you.
Very meditative track so far. It's very kind of like slowly paced, somber.
Now I am falling.
I'll find you.
Kind of like a nice kind of cinematic flair I find to the instrumental here. I feel like it's got such a drama to it. It's very lusciously produced.
In a moment or two, I'll be with you.
Apparently a track that depicts a birth of a single snowflake from the clouds and its impending demise upon reaching the ground.
Keep falling. I'll find you.
I do wonder how much of this track also plays into the idea of the mother-son relationship.
Catch me.
Especially with Kate singing "The World Is So Loud, Keep Falling, I'll Find You," and her son being the one that's falling, born and falling through the sky, teetering on an impending doom, perhaps. I think you could see this as a mother protecting her child.
I'll find you.
Very subtle track. Very, very like full of space. Beautiful atmosphere. Love that one. I thought it kicks things off with a nice, gentle, kind of wading into the sound. Kate definitely a stronger vocalist than her son, but I'll say, you know what, very sweet, and I do like the idea that perhaps it could be interpreted as, you know, a protective mother there to, you know, soften any blows her son may face. Let's go into Lake Tahoe. Tahoe? I think it's Tahoe. Let's go into it. This one, 11 minutes. Getting longer with each track. Really love the, quick side note, really love the artwork for this as well. I think this artwork, I'm pretty sure that is literally just a snowman. She is kissing on the cover there. But I will say, that's a very cool cover. I'm not sure if it is computer generated or not, but either way, looks kind of crazy. Fits the album perfectly. Ooh. Sounding kind of religious in tone, like a monastery of some sort. This one's eerie. Those strings and the piano work, it's almost like faltering. There's like a slight horror element within the instrumental.
And you might see a woman as if out of nowhere.
I'm loving these two vocalists, Stefan Roberts and Michael Wood, along with Kate Bush. I think she is the one singing Snowflake here. But those two together here, singing together in harmony, I'm loving what they bring to the table. It feels kind of ancient, feels very historical. It's got a nice kind of like church-like monastery feel to it. Reminding me of Lingua Ignota, by the way. Great artist, highly recommend. Does this circle back to track 1 perhaps? Is this a bit of a concept album? Or is it just a coincidence?
Porcelain dawn.
I love how this record's so quiet. You wouldn't guess this is the same Bush that wrote Hounds of Love and something like the Big Sky or Cloud Busting, with how massive and mammoth of a sound that they have. Oh, I like these very gentle drums coming in now. This track, I like the slow addition that we're getting with each instrument. And the piano. Gorgeous. I'm sorry, what is the story? I feel like I need to know the larger context here. Tells the tale of a woman rising from the frozen depths of the lake as a ghost. A bare track containing not much more than drums, piano, and vocals. It pertains to the longer format of the song Kate wished to explore on this album. Yeah, I did catch the high male voices against lower female ones to create a haunting chill. That, to me, feels very much more apparent than even on the opening track. But I have to say, how the heck was I supposed to depict that theme? But woman rising from the frozen depths of a lake as a ghost. Ooh, eerie, which there's certainly a horror element you can hear in the instrumental. I like that. You could hear like a humming synced with those strings. Super atmospheric elements. I definitely like this track more than the opening. I love just how haunted the vocals are. Like, it really matches the eeriness of the themes of this track. Beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. She's calling for her dog, piecing together the narrative here. Is this just about a ghostly woman coming out of a lake to find her old pet? Is that what I'm gathering here? Am I crazy? Is that... It seems like she's found her old dog. Described as a frail old pup now. Ooh. Oh, I like that kind of ghastly gasp. Very spiritual, this track. This is a beautiful track. I'm loving the story, the narrative she paints. I'll speak on a bit more as this track comes to a close, because and it's certainly, you know, it's not loud, it's not bombastic, but everything here is certainly much more grand than anything we've heard so far. Everything kind of just bouncing off one another. Great track, incredible track. Like, everything about that track's perfect. I actually think this is one of her best tracks, you know, along with a lot of the stuff we heard on Ariel. You know, in terms of post-2000s, you know, this beats out a lot of the tracks even on Ariel for me, perhaps. At least narratively, it caught me, you know, as I figured out what was going on here. Narratively, this thing is beautiful. It feels like it is written like a kind of a classic Victorian tale in a sense, almost like a Victorian short story about a woman who comes out of the waters. She's a ghost, and instead of taking on a more horror element like the instrumental suggests it would seem at the beginning, as it progresses, you see that there is no horror to be found. Instead, it is quite a beautiful and kind of solemn track as she rekindles a relationship with her dog. What a twist. I feel like that's another thing I like about this track, is it does catch you off guard by making you believe that this ghost is perhaps more sinister. You know, you're hit with the beginning here. It has much more horror-esque kind of strings. The vocals as well, with the kind of monastery approach, kind of lean into a little bit more of a horror tone. But as we progress, it actually gets quite pretty and kind of majestic in the production and vocals. And at most, there's a yearning and a sadness as she rekindles this relationship with her dog. Kind of a cute story. I like this one. Very literate. I'll say, thing about Kate Bush, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times over. She is a very literate artist. She feels like she's very well read, which you can obviously tell from her work all the way back to the Kick Inside, really. And it definitely comes through in her work. If she wasn't going to be a musician, I think she would have been a great author in her own right. Very Victorian-esque, kind of feels similar to something you might read of a Jane Austen or a Bronte sister even. Here's Misty. Let's keep it going. Misty sitting at 13 minutes, by the way. I believe this is the longest track Kate has ever made. Building a snowman, it would seem. Been too long since I've won one of those. Certainly a winter album. So far, we've got references to snowflakes in the first track, frozen lakes in the second, and now on this third one, we're talking snowmen. Basically a Christmas album. Much more of a jazzier focus too. Jazzy Kate Bush. Wouldn't mind a full LP of that. Wait. Hold on. That's this cover. This is the snowman she's singing about. What a twist. Didn't expect the cover to be so literal. Don't remember this version of Frosty the Snowman, but good for him, I guess. Frosty got that dog in him, as they say. Incredible songwriting, both this last track and this one. Very vivid kind of imagery being used. Love that. Kind of like almost out of tune rustic acoustic too. It's got a slight twang on it. God.
And when I kiss, his eyes can realize
A very weird,
his creamy skin.
very weird track. I'll say that. I feel like she's written about a handful of weird, kind of twisted love relationships at this point. But a snowman?
And his snowy white arms surround me.
An interesting fantasy, that's for sure. I do like how sweet this track is, despite, again, bizarre. I feel like she has a knack, though, for writing bizarre tracks surprisingly well and effectively.
So cold next to me.
If any artist is going to pull off a snowman love track, it's going to be Kate.
I can feel
Hmm.
him melting in my hand.
I love how quiet that got. She just held on to that last note. Love how kind of like relaxed sort of jazz this is. Just like a simple instrumental to back up the story.
Sunday morning.
Oh,
I can't find him.
love the self-harmonizing we're getting here. Seems our snowman has passed in the night right next to her.
Sheets are soaking, crushed and stolen, grassy.
Oh, still belting it out at her elderly age at this point. She has a lot more kind of like growls in her voice, I find, as she ages. Maybe it's easier for her to hit those higher notes with that.
I can't find him. Snowing. If you're out there,
Oh wait, hold on. Stepping out on the ledge.
I'm coming out on the ledge.
Wait. Oh my goodness.
Coming out on the ledge.
She's like intoxicated by this snowman. Maybe he's like some sort of siren, you know, steering her towards her own demise. I don't know how high this window is, but she seems to be in a trance. That was a insane track. 13 minutes, and it is a love story, it would seem, between her and her creation, this snowman. Again, incredible storytelling. She has a real knack for storytelling. This is like a twisted version of well, twisted? Is it a romantic version of Frankenstein? I was going to say a twisted version of Frankenstein. I guess that story's already twisted in its own way. However, a weirdly romantic version where instead of fearing her creation, she is being taken by her creation, that being a snowman. I feel like any artist doing this would be extremely weird, and would fall flat on his face. But I feel like Kate Bush doing it is actually surprisingly effective and tasteful. It kind of reminds me of the film Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro, which I'd have to watch again. I remember the first time I watched it, I was a little confused. However, same kind of idea in terms of, someone very artistic creating a very bizarre love story between a figure, a human, and a non-animalistic creature. And in this case, it's a snowman. Weird, yes, for Kate Bush. Kind of at this point, what you'd expect, and she nails it. I love that track. I thought the jazzy element really worked wonders for it. I feel like, that was probably the best route to go with it. Let's go into Wildman, though, because where are we going to keep going? Are we going to carry on the snow elements, which I've really enjoyed? It sounds kind of snowy. Some cold winds. This one already a bit more upbeat than anything we've heard. Who is this? Andy Fairweather. Is this some sort of cryptid? What's they're called? Maybe a yeti? The footprints would seem evident of that. I like the much more kind of clear and obvious sort of kind of melody and momentum of this track. Reminds me of Bowie for some reason. Maybe something he would have done in the 90s or 2000s. Definitely a track about a yeti once again. And Kate, as always, approaching this topic from a much more sympathetic kind of light.
Run away, run away.
Here she's rooting for that yeti.
Run away.
I don't know why he reminds me of Phil Collins. Or Peter Gabriel even. Oh, these chimes coming in. Again, great layering on this track. Incredible arrangements. Everything ever so carefully being placed on top of another. Even those guitars too, they're very distant and kind of reverb drenched. I like that one. Again, very delicate, maybe a little bit repetitive. I will say, at worst, I do think this track probably actually could be trimmed down a little bit, which, the album seems to work quite well with these more lengthy tracks. But Wildman and even Snowflake, perhaps to an extent, I do think could be trimmed to make for a bit more of a tighter sort of track overall. But I do like the narrative that's spun there on the Yeti, the topic of the Yeti, and the sympathy that she takes from it, which at this point I'm not too surprised with Kate Bush. She is an artist that feels like she embraces the weird and the supernatural, and does not shun it. Instead, she sends out an extended arm for one. Here's Snowed In at Wheeler Street. Again, I love, this is essentially a concept record, a concept album at this point. The concept being snow, and I love that. Kate Bush concept records, I'll take more of them. Send as many as you can, Kate.
We met before.
I like that rattling cymbal there.
We've been in love forever.
Who is this? Hold on. It's Mr. Elton John? Elton John, the man, the myth, the legend himself? I don't want to spoil what this track's about, so I won't read it yet. But given that it's called Snowed In at Wheeler Street, and it starts off with her saying, "I'm sorry to bother you, but don't I know you? There's something about you. Haven't we met before?" Is this some sort of love kind of track here? As two people are snowed in at the same building? I wonder. But Mr. Elton John on the track. What a twist. What an unexpected appearance, but I'll take it.
I'll just walk on by.
Then we met in 42, but we were on different sides.
Oh.
I hid you under my bed, but they took you.
Went from Rome to Paris to 1940s Germany, I would imagine. Seems like these two are tied by the soul. It seems like, centuries have passed, and they have continued to cross paths. Themes of reincarnation and soul ties.
No, don't walk away again. Don't
Oh,
want to lose you.
maybe the loudest of sounds I've gotten yet.
I don't want to lose you.
Bit of an alt rock twist there. And right back down into this continual. Was it a synth of some sort? Providing the backbone of the track.
I took your photograph. I still have your smiling face in a heart shape.
These two just need to stay away from each other. It seems like every time they meet one another, tragedy strikes. So what I'm getting from this track is to keep these two as far away from each other as possible. I don't care how powerful their love is. At what cost?
Snow.
We were so happy. I'd live that day over and over.
I mean, happiness before tragedy strikes.
But the world won't stop turning.
When we got to the top of the hill,
Don't walk away again.
It's nice to see both Kate and Elton massive in the 70s and 80s. And here they are together, 2011, two aging stars performing together. It's kind of sweet. It's kind of poetic. I like it quite a bit. And they do balance one another out. I think they have a nice contrast for the most part vocally.
Don't
Ooh.
want to lose you.
I love the deeper regimen he sings in here. Elton. Oh, he's still going. Damn, my man belting it out. I like this continual spinning kind of sound we've heard too throughout. I will say, it's not necessarily my favorite track as much as I was kind of praising it fairly enough throughout. Maybe a bit too, I would say, melodramatic for my liking. I think it's a sweet story in a sense, but I feel like we've seen the soul-tied lovers through centuries done a few times in different forms of art before, and I don't think this one is particularly that interesting. If anything, it does feel a little bit too dramatic for my liking. I am saying that after praising a track where she had what seemed like a sexual relation with a snowman. Keep in mind, I like the track where she is more interested in a snowman than a physical human being of Elton John. A shocker, to be honest. Let's go into 50 Words for Snow. This is an interesting album. I'm loving the delicate nature of it. I'm loving the storytelling. Some of her best songwriting, I do think. Here's the title track. Another lengthy project, another lengthy song, I should say. 8.5 minutes. Just gonna count
Drifting.
every letter. Oh, who's singing here?
Twisting. White out.
Oh my god, it's Stephen Fry. Shout out my man, Stephen Fry. Very smart man, very interesting man. Love the guy. Great voice.
Blackbird Braille. Avalanche.
You said that quite seductively, Stephen. This track seems to be quite literal. It really is 50 words for snow, eh? Maybe one of her most straightforward tracks.
Santanieruftico. Stella Tundra.
Getting creative with these words. I'm sorry, if you're doing 50 words for snow and you start kind of branching off into other languages, I think you've already starting to run out of words there, Steven. What? What the hell is that?
Zebra Niven. Spangladasha.
My man's just making up words now. This is an okay track. A bit too literal.
Erazo dust.
I like to imagine this was, I'm sorry, what's he saying here?
Schnamista flotten.
Okay, sure.
Terra blizzard.
Whirlamisso?
Qualissimo.
This has to be just improv at this point. My man is just making up the words.
Vanilla swarm. Sorbet deluge. Sleek sputen.
I don't really care for this song. It's just,
Melto blast.
I mean, it's 50 words for snow.
Slipperella.
Kind of feels one-dimensional at the end of the day.
Planga planka.
Instrumentally, I mean, instrumentally it sounds more intense than warranted.
Down.
A playful spin on the myth that Eskimos have such a large amount of different words for snow.
Deep and hidden. Bad for trains.
Wait, hold on. Sung/spoken in English as opposed to the Eskimos' language. It begins with many words that do indeed exist in this language before eventually traversing into the realms of bizarre and made-up words, some of which Kate was still adjusting right before Stephen Fry arrived to record his part. Oh my god, and Fry was chosen due to his reputation of being intelligent and well-respected, with Kate saying that whenever he says something, you think it must be important, and intended for his voice to give an even the most ridiculous words some gravitas. That is hilarious.
Crusted.
It actually makes the song a bit better when you realize that it's self-aware.
Blown from polar. Mistral despair.
Like, that's got to be just made up. Say it.
Snow.
There it is. Also, I love bad for trains. I mean, the song is quite literally just rattling off 50 words for snow, like it suggests. Does that make this track any better, knowing that it is self-aware in its silliness? I don't know if, out of this whole album, this is not the song that I'm going to be coming back to the most. I'll tell you that right now. I do think this is kind of like a one and done kind of thing. Could have worked way better, I think, actually, as an introduction to the album, to be honest with you. Especially with Snowflake, I think it would be a much better opener because it doesn't feel as serious or necessary of a track, to be completely frank with you. Here's Among Angels, the final track, which is the shortest, actually, at 6 minutes and 48 seconds. Now we're talking angels, it would seem. I do love how much piano we get from Kate here. She's a great pianist. Been saying it this whole discography.
But you don't know
It's perhaps about someone passing. Angels surrounding this friend or lover.
Rest your weary world
Ooh, I like this next line especially.
in their hands. Lay your broken love at their feet.
Beautiful line. Seems to be about someone passing on, with angels taking them in with open arms.
Just not showing.
I like that track. I was going to say quick because it felt quick, but I mean, it is 7 minutes. But greatly paced, very sweet, very melancholic. I think about the passing of a friend or just talking about the sheer beauty of this individual. I'm not too sure. But there seems to be an understanding of, perhaps them passing and the angels taking them in. They're in safe hands, it would seem. Kind of a somber and saddening finish to the LP. But I gotta say, let's talk about 50 Words for Snow as a whole record here. A lot of great tracks. with 7 tracks, an hour and 5 minutes, some of these are being quite lengthy. And I have to say that some of these are extremely weird, but still very beautiful, and I feel like only Kate Bush could do them the way they do. The track Misty, for example, the 3rd track, is her longest in her discography at 13 and a half minutes, and it is a very slow and gradual building track about her, it would seem, having sexual intercourse with a snowman, which I feel like for most artists that would be a very weird, out of the norm, hard to do track. But of course, Kate, I feel like, kind of embraces the weirdness and certainly manages to make that track work. And even the track Wildman, here speaking very sympathetically towards Yetis, very bizarre. Lake Tahoe, I also really enjoyed, because that track, again, shows her songwriting abilities perfectly, as that one is actually not too weird at all. Instead, it is a beautiful track about a ghost of a woman who died in the lake and comes back as a ghost and finds her old dog still waiting for her, and gives it the friendly sort of embrace that it's been waiting for. A very sweet track, very delicate, and kind of cute in the end. But there are tracks on here that I feel like just don't really stick the landing, or perhaps they're a bit too lengthy. Snowden at Wheeler Street, for example, I think was a bit too long, a bit too repetitive. I guess same could go for Wildman as well, being a little too repetitive as well. But Snowden at Wheeler Street with Elton John, I feel like even though they do a great job together, the track is a bit too melodramatic, I find. With some of the weirder elements of this LP, this one that is actually not weird at all, really just about two lovers who keep kind of running into each other after centuries through their souls, kind of feels a little bit too over dramatic, considering they're always meeting at these weird disasters such as 9/11 and World War II and the fall of Rome. Very bizarre that these two always end up amidst tragedy, but hey, I guess that works for the track. I just find it to be a bit too on the nose, a bit too dramatic. Snowflake, not much to say for that one. And 50 Words for Snow, I do find to be a little bit of a silly, kind of self-aware track, but doesn't really justify the runtime of 8.5 minutes when it's really just, reading off 50 words for snow. That being said, aside from a couple of those tracks that I was not too fond of, I did think the songwriting here was some of the best in her discography. Really shows how literate she is. Feels like if she wasn't a musician, she would be an incredible author, because Lake Tahoe, Misty, Wildman are 3 tracks in a row that I feel like are very literate, are very beautifully written, have great storytelling, and are certainly must-listens to at this point in her discography. Other than that, a very delicate album, a very beautiful album, a great concept album about snow and using snow as, different motifs and ideas. Just a great album, all in all, and impressive for her seemingly last album so long into her career. But that does it for today's video. If you liked the video, please hit like and subscribe to follow along on the channel, listening to different musicians, different albums, different things coming around, because we are done for the Kate Bush discography. It feels like we've been doing this for a while now. We've been doing it once a month, and now we are closing it out with this LP. And I have to say, it has been quite a journey, quite a ride, and we will be continuing with another artist very soon. I think in January, maybe a couple of artists. I'm not too sure, but stick around if that sounds interesting to you. And one last thing before we close out the video, just a quick reminder, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you are willing to donate, if you're interested in donating to help out my sister-in-law, who has been, again, recently diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I put the link in the description down below. It would be greatly appreciated if you do donate, but if not, that is okay too. No pressure either way. It would just be much appreciated. As always, my name is Randy Joe. I appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.